just pass out.
We all pass out. Yeah, we can't handle it. Like I can handle it till 3 o'clock in the morning gaming sessions. But anyway, so speaking of tech, I mean, welcome to the Hospitality Chat podcast. My name is Mehdi Rahman, and we have our co-hosts Joana Oliveira and Matthew Drummond-Poynter, and we have our guest Darnel. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
I mean, we're looking into, like, say how we could help the hospitality industry, restaurants, and how we would, based on the topics and trends are going about. And it'd be interesting to look into technology impacting the food industry, because there's so much development in food technology, and and how the industry is moving and evolving on how we would consume our foods, or the nutritional values of our foods are changing in accordance to different practices and whatnot. And I think it's pretty interesting to look into, like, say, farming and cultivation, agricultural methods and whatnot. And we would say, like, better to introduce that in the sense is, like, back when we were at school, I remember they talked about GMOs, genetically modified organisms. And it's been like there since like the 90s and whatnot. And it's been like it was a raving topic as well when I was hearing about it in school. It was such a controversial one, considering, the use of, like, say, chemicals into, say, in our fields, like, say, like herbicide resistance or pest resistance, and trying to increase the nutritional values of our food, even when chemicals are used into the soils and whatnot, which can cause, like, say, an alkaline to the soil, where it can have an effect on our crops. And it's pretty interesting to hear, like, how there's been developments, but there's also a bit of skepticism as well in terms of, the use of GMOs. Like, when you say, like, Matthew.
Yeah, no, absolutely. GMOs have attracted some flack over the years. Some of these claims are rather unsubstantiated, like some people would claim that genetically modified foods are just, like, outright bad for you, which doesn't seem to mostly be indicated by what we see so far. But there are also legitimate concerns around GMOs regarding if they outperform native plants, or if they escape to the wilds, and then they kind of, like, cause havoc in the ecosystem with this new plant. It can upset, like, drive out plants, which changes the food chain and can generally cause a bit of havoc to the ecosystem. So there are definitely worthy concerns with GMOs. They can mostly be alleviated by careful planning, making sure to not let these plants kind of, like, escape into the wild and such like, by seeds spreading outside and such like. And yeah, in general though, I think GMOs are a massive positive. It's only really through GMOs that we're able to continue producing enough food for the planet's continually growing population, enable us to get better yields and allow plants to, like, grow in areas where previously they wouldn't be able to. Drought resistance is, of course, a critical component, especially as we go more into kind of climate change and extreme weather events become more commonplace. So while GMOs have their drawbacks, these can mostly be dealt with, and I think they're crucial in dealing with our ever-changing planet and increasing population.
And also, crops are in development to genetically modify to grow in habitats besides their native ones as well, to try to increase yield productivity, to feed more people in a sense, and rather than waiting for the seasonal factors in relation to particular crops. But a prime example of this be wheat or rice, and meat is also could be modified to increase the quantity of it by quickening the rate of the growth of an animal by adding proteins or other nutrients to the meat themselves.
Oh yeah, and also while we're on the subject of kind of, like, altered plants and such like, I guess there's, of course, this whole movement around plant-based meat, but we're also which, of course, we're kind of, like, modifying some plants to kind of have a texture more consistent with certain meats and such like, which is definitely, right now it's super sci-fi and in early development, but it's definitely an exciting trend to keep an eye on.
I mean, speaking of, like, sci-fi in a sense, it's like there's also, like, satellite farming. The precision agriculture movement kind of technique, with the use of GPS tracking systems and satellite imagery to monitor the imagery of crop yields, when you say, like, soil levels and weather patterns to increase efficiency on the farms. Like, when you say, like, Darnell and Joanna, like, about precision agriculture.
100%, because it's needed for some sort of vegetables and fruits, because they grow in different areas, in different soils, and different is it atmospheres? Environments. It's different environments. So precision agriculture, Jesus Christ, is very important for different types of vegetables and foods. Even animals. There's a lot of animals that don't survive in like, I would say, cold environments. Like, well, this is a speculation, but like chickens, I don't think they would like survive in like Alaska or Canada if it's snowy all the time. Maybe they do. Don't quote me on this. I'm not too big in knowing where the animals survive the most, but I feel like generally they wouldn't survive if they're not properly taken care of, obviously. But I think it's really important to have precision in everything you do, really, especially concerning food.
I mean, the precision agriculture, the technology was adopted in the early 90s as well, alongside with GMOs. You know, I think like agricultural methods were really developing in that period where, because the technology was adapted in that period, it started with crop yield monitors, and then as time goes on, yeah, there's tools that have been developed like weather analysis software and soil testing kits to monitor nitrogen and phosphorus levels in the soil. And not only that, it can allow farmers to pinpoint the exact locations in the field to determine how productive the area is, as opposed to when the entire field is treated as one unit, meaning less waste is produced in the end. This is also important from an environmental standpoint, as farmers will have a sustainable practice and use less resources such as water to tend their fields. I think this will make sure, in a sense, to allow much more kind of more focused action rather than generalizing like the crops themselves. It adds more kind of more attentiveness and care to the crops as well, in a sense that allows increase the maximum efficiency to the crop development. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess on the topic of monitoring, actually, we could move on to drones, actually, which is another like way of kind of like farmers can monitor things and make their farms generally more productive. So using these drones, they have a variety of uses, but I guess to pick an example at random, if you've say got a diseased plant, or there's like a plant affected by a particular kind of fungus or pest or something, the drones can therefore identify that, and then the farmer can just use the relevant pesticide and such in that area, which saves the farmer money. Obviously, they have to buy less pesticide that way, but it also reduces the amount of ecological damage and damage to your crops and such you're doing, because certain pesticides, you know, they're not good for the pests, but they also tend to not be good for other like animal and plant life around the area, so it kind of minimizes the damage that way and enables them to kind of use pesticides a lot more responsibly. I mean, of course, it's, I guess, not without concerns either. I mean, we're always worried, I guess, about how robots are going to take our jobs and such like. So it's definitely something that has its concerns. But I think for the most part, it serves to more create jobs, because no one's really like, at least as of right now, hiring like people to like specifically look for certain plants, to my knowledge. Or if, I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think it kind of helps the farmers as well if they have the money to do it, because then you can not expend, but you can take a large area with the drones instead of you doing it by hand. They can just drop in and make it a large area, so it takes less time. At least that's how I see it. Like you said, like people might be scared that robots are taking over the world, but like for now, they're helpful. They help a lot in a lot of different areas.
I mean, Darnel, what would you say about like the importance of drones themselves? Like, what is the benefits of using drones in this kind of method?
I mean, in my opinion, drones are like really good for a wide like area of things, specifically for like agriculture, let's say, because with the growing population of like people in the world, what's it called? Yeah, I'm bad, I'm nervous. But with the growing population of people in the world, you're obviously going to need more food, you're going to need more plants, more animals, more blah, blah, blah. So using drones for these different things, let's say for farming, you could plant more plants, more food, more fruit, vegetables in a wider like area.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess growing more things that way rather than manual labor would be really beneficial in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah, and that kind of wider monitoring means you can keep an eye on like the ever-growingly large farms that are required to kind of sustain the ever-growing population of the planet. Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, I feel like drones themselves could be used in a way like, and they're not more autonomous, as more operated more manually by humans in the sense of like controlling drones or whatnot. And I think this is kind of, it'll be helpful to me. It'll be more of a sense of, it'll help create more jobs than replacing them, in a sense like, rather than being more hands-on a bit, they can take more precise or more definitive action to manage the maximum efficiency to the crop development, but also in a way of like, it will add more skill sets to and allow more job openings for like people who are more specialized in like, say, technical use, or trying to learn how to use more technical methods, you know, like using drone operating or whatnot. I feel like this is like a new skill set that others can learn from, as well as take in and also develop as well for themselves. And I feel like this is like a new way of like, you know, operating in the form of like precision agricultural movement, in the sense that I feel like drones are, in the sense, are very helpful to develop more new jobs, as well as developing new techniques, as well as trying to maximize the efficiency as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's got to pilot them, as you pointed out. Someone's got to develop them. Someone's got to program the software required to pilot them. There's a hell of a lot of jobs involved around creating tech, albeit it does create somewhat of a rough transition period sometimes for people, you know, because they get the job openings get fewer in certain areas, so they have to suddenly retrain. So there's definitely concerns around that one, but I think with adequate programs for retraining, you can minimize the kind of short-term damage that's done by that. And in the long term, I think it works out better for everyone involved.
And moving on to like another thing as well, access to recipes are becoming much more easier, like for more chefs in the industry, you know, through the use of like sharing recipes on social media, to like YouTube videos on tutorials on how to cook particular recipes. Like there's like a YouTube channel, I don't know if you like, from BuzzFeed, called like Tasty, you know, like they like make that kind of like cooking videos. I'm sure Daniel's gonna like have a little snippet of their videos as an example, but I'm just giving him direction.
Please put the Tasty Japan, because I follow that one on Instagram, and it just bangs.
It is
Every
amazing.
food they do is amazing. It's in Japanese, obviously, but they have, I think, in some of the videos, they have the English version of the measurements and whatever. Oh, they're so
only
good.
watch my cooking recipes subbed, not dubbed.
I mean, like, exactly. I mean, a lot of people use our phones to look up recipes and cooking techniques, and recipe sites, as well as, you know, YouTube channels that dedicate to cooking recipes themselves, are much more prominent than the traditional cookbooks and magazine recipes. I mean, we've seen a lot, and now it's become more palatable to other different types of dietary requirements, you know, from gluten-free to vegan to paleo. You know, it's just kind of, there's a guideline to pretty much any form of dieting or form of lifestyle, whether it's from different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, or dietary or health backgrounds themselves alone. And I think this has a form of impact to the food industry, in terms of like, it's not very more it's more hassle-free now to scramble in through papers to find a good recipe with some sort of meaning, but rather looking for a video with step-by-step directions. And I felt like this is becoming much more of an inspiration for other chefs and cooks in the industry to become more inspired to cook and utilize their produce into a different way of cooking through different dishes. And not only that, but with these precise instructions that are more produced now in videos, it'll be less likely for wastage to be produced. Again, like, as we talk about prestige agriculture, precision cooking is now being more emphasized through, you know, step-by-step instructions, through the know-how, by visually watching, and meaning that less waste is produced from unused and less ripe produce in supermarkets. And in addition, a few companies are starting to take food waste and turn it into cosmetics. And in a way, it's becoming much more now that people are more conscious about wastage and trying to tackle the problems of, like, you know, say, amount of food waste is being produced in landfill sites, or and so on and so forth. And I think about recycling, reusing products as well from different ways. Say if it's not been used for such a while, they turn it into cosmetic items, and these cosmetics are then sold, giving the food that had just been rotting in the trash can another purpose instead. And I think that's a way of like showing that a lot of the industry is now tackling it in a technological sense, but in an environmental sense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing like the reusing of waste items in regards to a lot of things. in the wake of kind of movements such as the zero waste movement, which has gained increasing popularity over the internet, where people try as get to as close to producing zero net waste as possible. As a result, through the internet, which is another new technological development, these kinds of methods can be proliferated and shared around the internet, which means that restaurants can pick them up. And I think a lot of them have kind of picked up a lot of their kind of methods of using like leftover bottles and such like, and finding new uses for them. And they've kind of like taken those kind of uses and proliferate them throughout their own restaurants. Like, let's say bottles, for example. You can take like a glass bottle or something, stick some fairy lights in it, and you've got a very nice and tasteful looking decoration to stick on your tables. I mean, that's so popular now that people don't even use their own bottles. They buy them pre-made now. So I think that's just an example of how kind of you can turn like wastage from food and such like, and use it to kind of decorate your restaurant or provide decorations to your customers, sell them as merch and such like. And I think all of this is just really exciting developments.
You just reminded me of what we used to do in our pub. The first one I worked at, we used beer bottles as like a table thing to put roses or flowers on. So we have 14 of them. And they're really cool because you're using like reusable, or not reusable because, well, it's glass, but we use cool beer bottles, the glass ones, to put on the tables. And because one of our side of the wall had like the labels of the beers, people could just talk about it, and we could just talk about the beers that were on the table. So it's like a conversation starter, and a lot of people just take pictures of it, probably try to do it at home or whatever. But it's a really cool touch to do in a pub, especially because 90% of the time you're selling beer anyway, so you can just like show off your bottles with like roses on top or whatever. It looks really cute.
No, yeah, actually, that brings me a thing. Actually, in my house, actually, I take like discarded like craft ale cans, such, because you know stuff like Beavertown, they have like great art on them. We cut off the top and then we use it as a pen pot.
Yeah, it's just sick. You just have to be creative, like DIY reusable like cans and glass to do cool things for your house.
You know, it reminds me as well like of this challenge called the Zero Waste Challenge. You know, when people are trying to do like living 30 days to a week of like having zero waste whatsoever, or even making cooking challenges where, like, say, making a cake with zero waste involved. So you have to use every single ingredients exact. So even means doing grocery shopping where the recipe that you're making, you have to take everything to an exact measure and nothing can't be wasted whatsoever. And I think that's a cool way of like creativity as well. Like even with in terms of marketing and promotion, a lot of people are doing challenges that would promote these kind of new cultural methods or cultural like environmental measures that, you know, from form of eco-friendly to zero waste. And I think these little things that we do in our households, to cosmetics, as well as DIY appearances and decorations, these are little things that are considered like the impact of the industry of through technology and environmental factors. But it's really interesting to see how these little ideals and ideas as well as values are starting to get pushed into more creative matters in the food industry and the restaurant industry as well.
One thing that I think we forgot to mention is the fact that technology enabled us to store food for longer periods, like fridges and freezers. Like in the medieval times, I can't speak, they had, I think it was salt cupboards. They would put the meat and fish, but that would only last like maybe a day or two. And now you can have meat and veggies in your fridge for like a week or two and they'll still be fine, which is something that we don't think to daily. We just put it in the fridge and leave it there until we come back. But it's something that we came a long way from, than having a cupboard with salt to prevent the meat and veggies to go bad, to just put it in the fridge. It'll be good for 2 weeks, maybe longer, depends on the food you have. It's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, moreover, actually, go on.
I mean, what's also cool as well, like I've just read about, is 3D printed food. Something like you consider the space age of foods, you know, like it kind of reminds me of like, just the weird sci-fi films of like instantly like just You know, like just something comes magically on the fire just by putting like, you know, it's like something from Star Trek, you know, and whatnot, just kind of materialize stuff out of nowhere, you know, like. But it's quite interesting because it came about in 2008 where NASA started researching on printed foods, and some engineers at NASA called the project the 3D food printing origin. Sounds like an absolute sci-fi origin story, you know. Just
Well,
like,
if it was from NASA, technically it is sci-fi.
I mean, it is obviously it is. But
They
it feels
do
like,
space.
I mean, it could be like a very cool documentary or like a mockumentary in the sense of making it into like a film. Be a cool idea actually, but with 3D printed
Mehdi's
food
getting
as well.
ideas.
I know
Yep.
I'm getting ideas, man. I'm getting full of ideas. But with 3D printed food is a way of like reducing food waste in the manufacturing industry. Like the technology can be used to tap into more unconventional food sources. Like this new development can create like meatless meats, satisfies the need of protein whilst cutting down on the number of slaughtered cows and the amount of carbon emissions that were being created in the meat industry. Foodini is one of the most advanced versions of the 3D printers for food. Just kind of interesting, Foodini. I mean, it is the best way to describe it. Like
It
materialize on.
It sounds like a spell. Harry Potter.
It's some magic food.
I know.
I guess, moreover, actually, getting back to Joanna's point, actually, development of fridges, but also in general, actually, we've kind of created a number of new developments regarding storing foods for longer periods. So obviously we know we can get fridges and certain controlled temperatures to store it in its preferred best, like cool or warm environment. But there's also things like you can actually, with some fridges, control like the best like oxygen and nitrogen levels to make sure that it doesn't decay at like a more rapid rate. We've got storage facilities now on most of our transport vehicles that we use to transport food as well, of course, which goes a long way to increasing their shelf life. And again, these fridges are top notch. They'll keep make sure it's the right level of moisture. The composition of the air in there is usually optimized as well. They go out of their way to really kind of maintain the food at its highest standard. And yeah, I mean, actually, speaking of maintaining air, actually, there's even like weird stuff like some vehicles and storage facilities actually have like things that can remove oxygen from there, which of course, without oxygen, you don't get like bacteria breathing because of course they can't survive there. Any insects that get in there, of course, are going to die. So again, this is a great way of kind of making sure that your goods are kind of maintained for as long as possible.
I mean, there are like, you know, these kind of key factors will help enable scientists to deeply research like into the key factors about foods. I mean, special departments have been formed that perform food items interaction in the stomach processes are also discovered by, you know, researchers. And if any natural toxins that are present in food can harm health if consumed excessively. And I think the technology and scientific processes identify natural toxins present in food items, but the technology food has the potential to fill the demands of the exploding population. And I think it's a great way to improve on how we produce and consume food.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of also gives us, we get more information like each decade about kind of what allergens and such like are present in foods that set people off, which again, of course, is very critical. If we don't understand why people are having a severe reaction to certain foods, we can't identify what foods are safe for them to eat. So we've definitely made great strides in identifying these allergens as well, which just helps make dining experiences safer for everyone.
I mean, it is quite interesting as like the technology lowers the barriers of like launching a restaurant businesses in a sense. Like we've talked about this in so many different podcasts, you know, the idea of the introduction to online ordering systems, you know, contactless payments, as well as, and also this is like this controversial topic about, you know, the enable of the dark or ghost kitchens or virtual restaurant business models, like changing how the entire workflow of the business model of a restaurant industry, you know, how technology development has given more life to efficient consumer electronic products that are used to process food. I mean, it's kind of going to show like, even like with the impact of the food industry, the restaurant industry is just, in a sense, is quickly trying to catch up to the new topic and trends. And I think we're all kind of working to have a sense of an improvement into how we consume and enjoy our food, as well as storing it. I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, I don't know how to end this one. It's more like, it's always excitement on new possibilities and new development. And I think the best way is to kind of like always, when looking into new discoveries, always look with caution and look at it with all possible outcomes, because even though development and, you know, innovation is good, it's a sense that you have to be very cautious on all aspects of it. Like, take a look at everything with different angles and possibilities and insights, because there's some things that others may know that we don't. So I feel like take a look at everything that you see with different points of views. That's kind of like the message of the podcast here today. And I think that'll be, yeah, I think that's like another one done, I think. So, and just to make sure, like, you know, to receive more of our videos, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, and then, you know, down below, you know, for any notifications, comment, because I know John's about to say comment, but I stopped her, you know.
If you want to implement some technological changes in your own business, then you can head over to our website, orderpin.co.uk, where we have a wide suite of apps that kind of like help improve your restaurant in a variety of fashions. And if you want to keep up to more information and up to date on incoming technological trends, you can head over to our blog at orderpin.co.uk/blogs in order to keep up to date with any articles that have been published about recent technological developments.
And
yes, sir.
Till then, this is the Hospitality Chat podcast. My name is Mehdi Rahman, our co-host Joana Oliveira and Matthew Drummond-Poynter, and our guest Darnel. I'd say thank you very much, and thank you and goodbye.